you guys doing? We're out here right now with my brother Joshua Darnell. It's really personal friend, amazing brother for us and Jay.
It's
Appreciate
awesome
you
to be
being here.
Fired up.
Yeah, we are fired
I've been
up.
thinking about this for several days, and I have to admit, if you'd asked me 5 years ago that I'd be with two men that I love doing a podcast, I'd say you're crazy. But it's definitely been an amazing last several years.
Yeah, it's not as beautiful as your farm, but we're out here stuck in.
We're just chilling in an undisclosed location.
Don't say anything.
Doing what we do.
Yeah,
It's good to be here.
somewhere four walls, but we have a sword, so be careful.
Yeah, it's
Right
right
there.
behind us.
Yeah, right
All I gotta
behind
do
you.
is say something
Excalibur
and it
right
drops in
there.
my hand.
Yeah, it's
Fall
sharp.
on one of us.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have Joshua Darnell right here, right now.
Welcome.
Welcome to Anything and Everything podcast. So we'll introduce ourselves.
I'll
yourself.
introduce myself.
Yeah.
The most important thing about me is that I got two wonderful sons, Eli and Evan. I love them dearly. I'm also a thankful grandfather. I've got a granddaughter and a grandson that I love dearly. I've been a chaplain for a long time, so chaplain as a roughneck on oil rigs, chaplain as a firefighter, chaplain for Coast Guard Auxiliary at one point, chaplain at the National Rescue Mission, a homeless shelter. But the last couple of years, I took an opportunity 3 years ago to work at an orphanage in Haiti. Did that for almost 6-7 months, and it got really pretty dangerous. So came back home. I was asked to come back home. And then that situation opened up in February of 22 there in Ukraine. And I was asked to be of help there.
Yeah. And then for our audiences, can you explain what does the chaplain do, like in general?
Yeah. First of all, there's a lot of different kinds of chaplains. In other words, there's chaplains that work in a hospital. There's chaplains that work in hospice care. There's chaplains that work in the military. There's chaplains for fire departments. There's just chaplains all over the place. Basically, they're a come alongside ministry, a ministry of presence, a ministry of perseverance, a ministry of encouragement. And there's chaplains for a variety of faiths. I myself am a follower of Christ, so I'm a Christian chaplain. But I don't mind saying there's chaplains for lots of different faith belief systems. What's the most important to me is that a chaplain builds relationships with people to where when they go through difficulty, they can have that relationship built, and then they can help them.
Yeah.
Come alongside and help them in whatever way. This morning, a little company that I've been helping the last several months, they called me and said there's a person broken down in their car with their animals, and well, what are we going to do? I said, well, let me go check it out.
Yeah.
So I just went and talked to them and helped them out. So, and then told her that we want to help them. And so chaplains come alongside and help.
Okay.
It's very important.
Do they need to go to like some type of training for that or schooling?
Depending on their job, they would definitely need some training. I highly recommend someone, if they don't do any training, at least come alongside another chaplain and get an example on what to do, the nuts and bolts of it.
Shadowing.
But if you're going to be a military chaplain, I know in the American military, you need to go through school, grad school, and get your MDiv, which is grad work. And I went ahead and did that a long time ago. I had hair when I first started that. But yeah, as a general rule, any profession that is really intense on helping someone spiritually, psychologically, mentally, you're going to have a little bit of education. Yeah.
So in the Army, we do have chaplains. So are you that type of chaplain where you carry coffee everywhere?
I had to be honest with you.
Snacks.
Jolly Ranchers all over.
I can count on less than these two hands my entire life. I don't drink coffee. I don't like it. When I was growing up, I never got into it. And so back when I was a director of the homeless shelter, some of my staff had to have coffee so bad they were a pain in the butt if they didn't have it. I actually had one chaplain that I told one time, I said, if you don't get your coffee, I feel like I have to do an exorcism on you, and you're the chaplain.
They do get like that though.
Oh, I know. If you
All
don't
the
get your
time.
little caffeine fix.
Yeah.
And so, no, I'm not one of those kind of guys. The truth of the matter is, I'm a very, very hands-on type chaplain. I'd rather come along somebody and help them fix their tire.
Right.
I'd rather, help them build a house. Just get in there with them.
Yeah.
So,
That's just a running joke. Well, it's partial true because like most of the chaplain, in the army, they're not combat arms, so they don't really carry weapons.
Yeah.
So their main weapons is a coffee kettle.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. That's a really interesting conversation since this is anything and everything.
Yeah, 100%.
Years ago, I read a great book by Claude Newby. He was a military operator in Vietnam for the United States Army. He was also a chaplain.
Nice.
But he also got a Purple Heart.
Right.
He engaged the enemy with a weapon.
Right.
Now they've changed policies, and I'm not here to cast judgment on why they did or why they did or didn't do it. But I will say this: when a chaplain can get in there and be part of the missions, and be in harm's way, lay down cover fire, do whatever's necessary, which is what's happening in Europe, which is what's happening in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Then the ministry that you have with your men is off the chain. Let me just give an example of that. After the Battle of Kiev, some of my unit was going on to Kharkiv. I was finishing up doing some stuff at the base. And I remember Shep, one of my men, came up to me, and we had just gone through a lot together.
Yeah.
Basically, in a combat situation, every week feels like a month. Every month feels like a year. And so you develop relationships very quickly.
Yep.
There's a lot of adhesion in the relationships. And he looked at me and said, hey, chap, could you give me some of those verses that you keep underneath your plate carrier? I went, Roger that, man, no problem. And I really wish I knew what verses I gave him, because he was KIA'd, killed in action about a year after that. And ironically enough, I mentioned this to somebody the other day. I loved that man for over 2 years. We were in the same unit for a long time. And I called him Shep, and he called me Mav or Chappie. I never knew his natural name. We cried together. We did missions together. We went underground to get ammo and a bunch of stuff. He didn't know I was coming back from some missions. I didn't know if he was coming back from some missions. He laid in a dirt hole with Cavi for 4 days trying to kill a bunch of Russians coming over one spot, and all kinds of stuff happened. Injuries, all kinds of stuff. Never knew the man's name, but he was like my brother. And then I find out later his real name is Jericho Sky McGowan. And I would have messed with him on that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Hollywood name. That's like
That's
Clint
a beautiful
Eastwood.
name.
That's a Star
Jericho
Wars name.
Sky
Yeah.
McGowan.
That's a Star
Like,
Wars
my goodness.
name for sure.
Yeah.
We buried him, I think it was in August of this year. It took us over 6 months just to get his remains back.
Yeah.
He was killed in no man's land in a drone situation. But anyway, I love being a chaplain
Yeah.
because when I was a young chaplain, you're not sure how to do it. Now I know you just build relationships. Don't get anybody's grill right off the top. Just build relationships. Be honest. Cannot be fake. And then when difficulties come, somebody will say, hey, man, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But, of course, in Europe, in the war between the Ukrainians and the Russians, the difficulty was such a high level. And that's kind of what I wanted to mention. My son and I, my son Elijah, he's in 278. He's in the United States Army. And I love my son. He and I were talking about the privilege that I'd have to say anything.
Right.
And I wanted to make, remember, chaplains don't preach necessarily. They just kind of, I guess some of them do. I'd rather let my life do the preaching, but I don't mind telling people about Christ either. But here's my point. There is a power of cooperation that we're seeing in Europe right now that in one sense I wish we saw all around the world. When the terrible storm hit North Carolina and East Tennessee, a bunch of friends of mine and my sons and a bunch of people led groups of people over there to help. 5 or 6 trips. Went to North Carolina 2 or 3 times. Went to East Tennessee 2 or 3 times. Taking water, taking chainsaws, getting after it. Evan Darnell, my second son, who's fixing to join the Air Force possibly, and I'm proud of him as I could possibly be. He took a group with a box truck. But here's my point. The power of cooperation, in my opinion, from what I've learned in Europe, works almost in miracle fashion when 3 things come together. And I have to be honest with you, it's only been maybe 2 or 3 times in my whole life, and I'm 51 years old. It's only been 2 or 3 times that I've ever seen this happen.
Yeah.
The first thing is there's a sacred responsibility. In other words, I went in there initially, this first couple of weeks in March, to help a couple orphanages get out. Brought $5,000 cash, a bunch of satellite phones. We needed to get them out. And so I was able to help that happen. And then when I got involved with the war, and civilians were being killed, regrettably. Children their lives were being taken. There was an inner reality that there was a sacred responsibility here. And that's to take care of to try to defend the people, the civilians.
Right.
It really had nothing to do with the Russians, really. It was a sacred responsibility. It's not like, now, I've been a parent for a long time. My oldest son's almost 30. But I remember when I first had my son, if they have to eat first, they get the food. I mean, I love my children. That's a sacred responsibility.
It's your humanity. In a
Yeah,
sense,
I want to help. And it doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't matter what color the person is. It doesn't matter what language. I still don't speak Ukrainian, but I love Ukraine because I love the people. So number 1, sacred responsibility. Number 2, when there's a joint sacrifice. Well, because of that sacred responsibility, in Ukraine, everybody was just doing anything they could do. I remember the lady at our military base that would cook food for us, and we would hurry to get her out of there so she didn't get missile hit. And I remember the grocery lady giving us zip ties as soldiers. Everybody did whatever they could, regardless of cost, regardless of what the price you had to pay, the sacred responsibility. So we all sacrifice together, mutual sacrifice.
One mission, right?
Yeah, and then that turns into a synergy of love, like a synergy of giving. And it goes beyond rank. It goes beyond pay. It goes beyond, the originals is what I call them. The originals are a bunch of those men and women that came in to fight in March of 2022.
Yeah.
Now, some of them did come to just see what it was like and then leave in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And they just didn't understand that sacred responsibility must not have attached in their hearts. But or they had other means or reasons for being there. And they took off quickly. But if a man or a woman came there to be a part of the resistance against tyranny, against just taking land, against just hurting people for no reason, a lot of them stayed and many died. But I call those guys the originals. So anyway, when the sacred responsibility is accepted, and then it's like the whole nation rose up to sacrifice. There were times in the Battle of Kiev, we were doing our mission, we would see boxes of food just out on the road. People couldn't come out of their houses because of snipers and everything else. And yet people were a lot of people didn't have much food, but they would set that out there in case another neighbor needed it.
Yeah.
Shared sacrifice. And then there's that synergy of giving. And of those originals, men that gave their lives, I think of Pizza Boy, and at the end of the Battle of Kiev, Chief died, and then later Bjorn was killed in action. Shep, our lieutenant, was killed in action. Jace was killed, a young man from Missouri. Rory from Dublin, Ireland. I just mentioned Bjorn, but he was just recently killed in action. And not to mention, that's KIA. That's not talking about casualties.
Yeah.
We had a lot of casualties. Our Unit 3531 was actually disbanded at some point. I forgot the actual month, but like I said, the last 3 years have felt like 20 years.
Yeah. It's been 3 years.
I actually have hip replacement surgery this Friday. Now, it was a culmination injury. In other words, it's not something I brought into the war as far as at the beginning, probably. I don't know. But I hurt myself real bad outside of Bachman. I wish it was something cool and like a sexy story. But it was actually a couple of our guys, my commanding officer and I, we got lost, and we were already rucked up, and it took us 2 or 3 days to find where we needed to be. Our cells were down, and he was from Sweden, I'm from America. We're doing the best we can. A week before that, 3 days before we got disoriented, a gentleman that I went to go speak with, he was a captain. I think he was a captain. I forgot exactly his rank. But I was coming. He asked me to come and talk to these guys and encourage them, and he took his life 2 days. In fact, I was on a train. He took his life because of the pressure. And I ended up ministering to those guys that were there, and spoke to those guys and got them. And I ended up, that was the last time I really fought, because I put my old stuff, all my stuff on, and I did a night shift, and we had 6 or 7 drones on top of us, and you don't know which ones are just for recon or intel or which ones are payloads.
Yeah.
And so you just say, Lord, please help me. And I came up with this thing in the war. I've never shared this with anybody. What I'm going to tell you right now, I'll be honest with you, I've never shared with anybody.
Amen.
And it kind of crisscrosses a number of different faiths. I know Roman Catholicism does this. And I know Protestants, we normally are known for this, or our cross. Or it blends in Christianity. But while I was in Ukraine, because of the power of the resurrection, the idea that God can do new beginnings, and I want a new beginning for Ukraine, I would go like this, and then I would do the form of the stone that had to be carried away when Christ was resurrected, and I would go like that. And then I would put my hand down as if I'm holding Christ's hand. In other words, like this, and I'd roll that stone away, put my hand down, because I have to admit, if faith's not good for me, I couldn't share that with anybody else. And many, many nights in Ukraine, I would go to sleep with missiles hitting all around us, not far from the enemy. But I had to get up in 4 or 5 hours and go out and do it again.
Yeah.
And your testosterone levels, what are you thinking about? You're spinning, your mind's spinning.
Yeah, journaling.
So
At
anyway,
some point.
I want to share the idea of this. There is power in cooperation. When people see a sacred responsibility, and they're willing to sacrifice for it. We've seen that in North Carolina and East Tennessee. I think we've seen that in Europe right now.
Yeah.
I think regardless of someone's political affiliation, in other words, I don't care who you vote for.
Yeah.
And I mean that. I believe in the Constitution. I certainly believe in freedom. The truth of the matter is, I had problems with both candidates.
Yeah.
But we can come together on the cooperation of being Americans.
Humane.
Yeah, being humane and loving people.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want, as far as my time there in Ukraine, there's a couple of takeaways that always come to my heart, and that is the spirit of the Ukrainian people to try to maintain their humanity while they're getting literally hammered regularly is something that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And then I'm hoping to go back as soon as I can. I don't know what role that will be, but I want to help those people. I love them.
Yeah.
But
I want to backtrack real quick, because I would, if I'm in their position, like the audiences, I would ask like how you ended up there. What gets you to like sign up and like, okay, I'm going to Ukraine. How's that process? And also like tell us like the first week of you being there. Like just send us back to like how did it all happen?
Yeah. Well, because I had spent that time in Haiti and helped out at an orphanage, I had a heart to make sure the kids in the orphanages there in Europe, in Ukraine, were able to get to safety. Because you remember that feeling in that first week, we thought that Ukraine would get overrun very quickly. Like
Yeah.
the largest country in the world is attacking Ukraine, which is number 46
Yeah.
in size.
Yeah.
So we thought it'd get taken over. So I went over there initially to help with the orphanage situation. So that's what got me there. Now, I happened to, when I went from Warsaw into Przemyśl,
Poland.
Poland, I was immediately interrogated. The airport had just been taken over by the Russian specs, Russian forces, and they want to know why would I show up? And I sat there for a couple of hours and they interrogated me appropriately.
Who is
The Ukrainian army,
Yeah.
with the Ukrainian local police,
Yeah.
as they were doing to everybody that first come, like, what are you doing here? What is your purpose?
Yeah.
So I told them, and I told them again, and I told them again, and then when we were able to communicate with the people I was going to help, they said, okay, that makes sense. We just want to be sure, and I said, good. You have to put yourself on a war footing, so go ahead, interrogate whoever you need to appropriately, and but as far as I was planning on only being there a couple of weeks, June. I mean, seriously, But-
So you already know that the war is going on, then you went there?
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I knew exactly I knew I was getting into. In fact, before I left, I called there was a liaison ambassador. Ukraine's got some folks here in America. I called them and said, if I get over there, if I help with these orphanages and get them out, if there's anything else, could there be anything else I could do to help?
Yeah.
And I asked him, well, are there any chaplains in the Ukrainian military?
Yeah.
And he said, well, yeah, there's not that many, but just when you get over there, feel it out. Of course, I mean, I want to be completely blunt with you.
Yeah.
At this part of my life, I don't have a wife. At this part of my life, my sons are grown up. They're men.
Yeah.
Both of them bigger and stronger than I am. And so I didn't have the weight of taking care of a family here and the responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
So I felt the liberty. If the Lord wanted me to do that, then maybe I could do it.
Yeah. And I want to ask too, like, how was that conversation with your parents? I mean, I met your parents, Pete Darnell and your mother. How was that conversation when you decided, like, I'm going to leave?
Yeah, well, my mom and dad, three things are real sure about my parents. Number one, they love the Lord. They have a desire to serve others.
Yeah.
They've literally given, their whole life has been about serving others. Number two, my parents, they helped all of us. I'm Jeff, Josh, and Jenny. I'm the middle child. They have ingrained in us that we need to do our calling, however that is. In other words, they told me, I love you. If this is what you feel led to do, get after it. And they were also very clear that they knew what was happening was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That they don't have a right to do that. So if their son, if my life were taken in that scenario, then do it. My own mother made it real clear. She said, if you get a shot at Putin, shoot, make it a headshot.
Take it.
My mother is very clear that what was happening was very wrong. It shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And the third thing I want to say about my parents is they're supportive in a way that I can't put words to. In other words, they knew the reason to help these people, and so they were on board.
Yeah. And what about your sons?
Well, wow, it would be tough for me to answer how they felt at the time. It just so happened my son told me yesterday in a phone conversation, this is Evan, that he is proud of the service that I had the privilege of being a part of, with Ukraine. He's proud of that. And I don't mind, but it's appropriate to Eli was proud of me. Eli took me to the airport. Eli gave me as much information as he can. My son, although I was a soldier and did the best I could. My son is a fully trained United States Cav Scout, and so his part of his was, Dad, I want you to know as much as you can. Dad, I want you to know, and don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually showed me some maneuvers. He showed me all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and that makes sense. But to be very raw about it,
Yeah.
just kind of put the curtain back a little bit. And I hope Evan wouldn't mind me sharing this, but after I went back and then came back for a break and then went back and then I went back again and then there was another situation. I need to go back in Kharkiv. I went back a number of times with my unit. At some point, Evan just said, Dad, how much is enough? And by then, a bunch of my guys have been killed in action. And that's a question that every soldier wrestles with.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how my sons, they were proud, but they were like, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the first day, then moving forward, the first day you were at the train station. Is that what your first day at?
Yeah, well, the first day I went into Przemyśl, which has a train station. Basically, throughout the war, you go from one train station to another. That's how you go from Przemyśl over to Lutsk, and then Lutsk over to Kiev, and then depending on where else you're going, you can take a bus, you can take a car. They aren't friendly skies, so you're not taking a plane. So it's mostly by train. And so to the American mindset, that's pretty tough because we're used to quick.
Yeah. And
But,
drive our own.
Yeah, you drive your own, but it's
Yeah.
not like that there. I mean, a lot of train rides.
How was the people when you got there the first day? And we already like in the first month of war when.
Yeah, I think I have to look at my passport. I think it was a couple of weeks in.
Yeah.
I know it was like they came in on 24th. I think I was there in like 2.5 weeks later. So like March 11th, 12th. Like I said, I have to look at my
Yeah.
passport.
And then.
How were the people?
Yeah. Are they already? Are they disarray or are they kind of like normal as usual? Like what's the
Wow,
the scene there?
what a wonderful question. First of all,
Because I can.
people were in shock.
Yeah.
People, and I think it's appropriate to say this because of the scenario, the situation. It's not like the Ukrainians didn't know many Russians. There are lots of family members that know people in Russia, and a bunch of Ukrainians are like from Russia. So there was this shocked feeling of, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah,
is
it's my
this really
family member,
happening?
you know?
Yeah, I mean, there was shock. There was also a lot of fear, a lot of fear. So much so that during those, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think within the first year and a half, it was the largest diaspora since World War II. I know somewhere between 7 to 8 million people left the eastern part of Ukraine, to go west, to go to Poland or Moldova.
Yeah.
So how were the people? There was a mixed bag of fear, shocked, anger. Like we have to defend. I mean, villages were coming out to the Russian soldiers and without any weapons and just telling them they need to go home. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
There was great courage. A lot of people were getting killed and it wasn't put on the news during that time frame. I think the whole world was like, what is going on? This is not supposed to happen in the world.
Yeah, because everybody has access to everything in their own. So why,
Yeah.
why is all this conflict happening in a time like this? It's supposed to be developed enough right now. It's like
Right. But we sit here in a free America being able to communicate like this.
You can't do it over there, and at least in Russia.
Yeah, whereas in Russia, in a totalitarian, they would call it a democracy. We all know it's a dictatorship.
Yeah.
They don't get the opportunity to communicate like this. So I will say this. From the very beginning, though, the men and women that were in the military, they all gave themselves they looked at each other and said, we're going to have to tighten up, Buttercup.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have to do the best we can right now.
I mean, it was
right now.
number 2 ranked military, I guess. You gotta
Yeah.
just imagine that, a number 2 military, they're number 2
They were up
during that time.
there. They were up there.
yeah,
There's like, imagine like a whole country coming at you, invading. That was like, it's 20. We're already in the 20th century. Like, I mean, 2021 or 20.
It was the very beginning of 2022,
Uh,
and then
what's going on?
2023 is when we kind of thought that we were going to really take them. It was called
Yeah.
the Summer Offensive,
Yeah,
and we kind of got stuck back there.
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm hearing myself. Can you guys hear yourself?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's like delayed.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Hello. We're getting hacked right now.
Don't say that.
uh,
They got your face, Josh.
uh,
Oh, I don't care. I'm all over the.
I
I'm
got
not
you.
hiding.
I don't know. Like I heard like a glitch sound, and then it started like delaying.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we're just gonna remove our headphones.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have to.
Yeah, I just use the mic for now.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's just.
That was weird.
Yeah, I don't know. That never happened before.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, but yeah, you mentioned that the fear and anger. So, can you tell us like the first time that you encountered like the engagement, or at least your, I know there's a lot of IDFs and stuff like coming from Russia. Like, can you do you know it's gonna happen? It's just a matter of when, right? So when did happen? Can you tell us how did you feel?
Okay, you're talking about when we first started doing our missions. How did I feel with that?
That or were you already getting attacked when you got there first,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, when you first get there, they were already attacking the military bases. When I showed up at my first military base, a bunch of my guys had been in another military base. About a half of guys got barbecued in a van.
Damn.
Where they got hit, direct hit. One of my guys, Venom, his foot had been all messed up from running on glass as he was trying to get away from a building getting bombed out. In Kiev, where we were at, there was missiles everywhere. I mean, you could see them in the night. And so, in other words, you were already, it wasn't a situation you come here, you're not engaged, and then you go engage the enemy. You're right, it's right there. It was
Happening
on
in
you.
real time.
It was on you
Yeah.
all the time. And the positive of that, if there is a positive, is that you come together as a team in a way psychologically that you can't get in just training. I mean, there was never any of this. Well, we may or may not use this or not. I remember Shepard one time saying, "Listen, this is how we're going to stack on a door." I mean, we had like 4 or 5 countries represented in our unit. I know you guys do it one way, Americans do it another way, the Swedes do it another way, the Germans do it another way. We're going to do it this way. Just I don't care. We can all add to it, but we got to come together like now. And I remember my first mission. The honest truth is, in my first mission, I begged the Lord that I would show the courage to represent not only my family, but my country and my desire to help these people. Because Brian, my cousin, who's in the military, has been for 20 plus years, he said, "Josh, regardless of your training or lack of training, you're going to know if you're built for this on that first mission."
That's a
I mean,
fact.
that's when push comes to shove, and I cannot. There's no credit to myself or to my men or to my unit. My credit is to the fact that there was a sacred responsibility in front of us, and we felt an inertia. We need to do this. This is right. We were looking at each other. I have a photograph of Shep when we were going on one of our first missions. And no, we didn't do GoPros and cell phones, and photographs, and all that stuff. I remember him looking at me one time, going like this, just putting his thumb up, and I just remember going like this, putting my thumb up. But it was a Ukrainian that was our lieutenant at that time, our commanding officer at the time. His name was Levi, and he gave our unit the motto Via Fide. He said, "This is Unit 3531. We're Spartans, and this is our motto, Via Fide." And I had a private conversation with him. I said, "Man, what does that mean? What are we talking about?" And by the way, we didn't have dog tags. We didn't have. By that time, 3 or 4 weeks into the war, there was no more Velcro.
Yeah.
We couldn't even Velcro things on. And you guys are both soldiers. You understand that Velcro, you got to have it to.
Mm-hmm.
I built that thing built to last. So
Yeah, it does.
But some of us, we just got tattoos on our arms. I'm not going to do it, but if I pulled my jacket and shirt off, you'd see my tattoo, which has got my blood on it, A+,
yeah.
my name, officer. You know, I wasn't an officer at the time for sure. But anyway, bottom line is, Via Fide means way of faith or way of belief. And of course, to me as a chaplain, I synced up to that real quick. Mm-hmm. But even if a person didn't believe in the Lord, way of faith to them meant we can believe that we can do this, as far as we can commit to this sacred responsibility, whether we live or die. Mm-hmm. There is a way right here. And I remember Dutch told me one time in between missions, and Dutch was an American, been in Afghanistan several times, great soldier, good soldier. I remember one time Slim got shot, AK-47 round into his right hip, knocked him on his butt. We still drug him out. It was Dutch who put him on his shoulder and still was firing as he was coming back. Looked like some 80s movie or something.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But anyway, I remember Dutch saying, "No matter what, Darnell, this is a clean war. We know that what they're doing is wrong. We know we're defending everybody in the West, the people in the West, and it's a good thing." So he said, "I've been to wars where I didn't feel like that. I wasn't sure exactly if what we're doing is right." He said, "I know this is the right thing to do."
Yeah. And can you tell us about and you know, you have your unit, you have your brother. I mean, I understand the brotherhood, you know. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us, like, during the downtime, like how is it like for you guys?
I think it's the same. I've talked to Eli, I've talked to you, I've talked to other soldiers that are, it's probably the same. Our decompression is a third euphoria that I can't believe we didn't buy it. I mean, isn't it awesome? We're back. I mean, that was cool. I mean, isn't that good? Some of it was anger that we didn't get it done the way we wanted to do it, so we're just messing with each other. Hey, man, you pointed your rifle at that one point, or I remember one time a guy had to borrow somebody else's nods because we didn't have enough nods to even do the mission. Yeah, we were only 3 or 4 mags in for each guy. So the way we decompress is we make fun of the situation. We would sing songs to make fun of stuff. We made fun of each other lovingly. Yeah. I mean, one guy wasn't there for roll call, so we gave him, we called him Jen. We made fun of stuff. I remember one time, right in the middle of the Battle of Kiev one time, I was coming up. I took some rags, and we had a little bit of this nasty tasting ketchup. And I put the ketchup on a little rag and put it around my head. And had the little ketchup coming right here, and I walked into the guys like this, and Mike ran over to me, man, what happened, man? What's going on, man? And I said, well, I'm just messing with you. I'm good. And it's like, you son of a biscuit, I'm gonna kill you, man. So a lot of guys listen to music. I mean, music was a huge deal amongst each other. What are you listening to?
You're a good singer, Josh.
Yeah, no, and I had a harmonica. I had a harmonica, and I didn't have it. Let me just. Yeah. I'll quickly tell you that Cav. Somebody gave Cav, which is a great soldier. He's fighting right now. Yeah. Gave Cav a harmonica, and he gave it to me, and so I'd play that. I remember one time at roll call at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I had this harmonica, and I start playing taps, and Pops from Scotland looked at me and said, "Mav, no, man, you can't. Don't play taps in the Battle of Kiev." I'm like,
That's crazy, bro.
Anyway. He said, "No, you can't do that."
That's amazing, man. A lot of people watching right now, this is what the epitome of walking in your purpose looks like. This man right here. Because a lot of people can say they want to do this, but when push comes to shove, people don't have the backbone or the testicular fortitude, as we would say, to go out and do what they're supposed to do, man. So it's like big salute to you, man. Yeah. And I know a lot of people that know you and what you've done, even the people back in Ukraine and everything like that, they really appreciate it. Even if they don't get to tell you at all, I know that they really appreciate it. So in that instance, like, how do you know what to say to them as a chaplain in that type of situation? Like, how do you know what to say to people to lift their spirits? Because I know sometimes you can't always be smiling. I know that much.
Right. No, absolutely not. In fact, I think I had some of my best ministry or helping in a it was kind of a, there was a lot of listening, there was a lot of crying, there was a lot of looking into their eyes. And because I had been there with them, they knew that I understood. If you were, I remember one time a 4-year-old girl looked up at me, and I had been staying at their home, and she said, you know, why can't you take care of the war? Why can't you get all the bad guys out of here? She's a 4-year-old girl. And I got down on my knee and looked at her and I said, I don't want you to worry about that. We're doing the best we can, but I love you. Your mom loves you. We love you. So how to minister in that situation is to offer them a listening ear, a crying heart, and then tell them that the Lord loves them too. There can be great faith in the middle of incredible difficulty. Psalm 18:1 says, the Lord is my rock and my fortress. And so here in the States, United States, you know, when people talk about prayer, they're like, yeah, maybe not. But in a war zone, prayer is something you're like, dude, this is good. This is good.
That's true.
But truly loving someone, truly loving someone, sometimes you don't even have to communicate.
That's true.
You're just with them.
That's that. I was reading that today in this book that June put me on to. It's like the universal language that everybody understands it. But it's like when you only get it when your soul is emerged with the language of the universe or the flow of the universe. Something like that.
Yeah. And,
But yeah.
and what is the best flow? According to 1 Corinthians 13, the three things that are most important is faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love.
Yep, that's the universal
And
language.
I want to tie this into the election for just a split second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Regardless
Go
of
for it.
who,
Talk your
Yeah.
talk.
regardless of who you voted for.
Yeah.
I was driving down the road the other day, and one on the winner's side of this election, they made a comment. Well, right now I'm watching the deterioration of the souls of our opposition, and they started laughing. I turned the radio off. It just, I turned it off. I was like, I'm not listening to that. Why would, at any point, would an American want to hear the deterioration of the soul of your opposition?
Yeah.
Come on,
We live
man.
in
That
the
is
same
just
country.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
It breeds
And
division.
if we got attacked in a war situation,
Yep.
we would understand that faith, hope, and love is the most important thing.
Yep.
And that love is the most important thing. When a Ukrainian person walks up to me, and it happens periodically, and they'll say "Dyakiyu," which is Ukrainian for thank you. If it's a man, I'll put my right hand on their shoulder, and I'll look at them, and I'll say "Until Paramoha," in other words, until victory. And then I'll tell them, I care about you. I care about Ukraine. And here's the funny thing. Over the time of the war, I would say, I care about you and I care about Ukraine. But as the war got to the end, I just said, I care about us. I had internalized being there as one of them, even though I don't have a Ukrainian citizenship. I don't have an address in Ukraine. But when you have that sacred responsibility and you have that sacrifice, mutual sacrifice, and then there comes this synergy of of each other loving each other,
Yeah.
man, you feel one with them. That is the brotherhood. Among soldiers, we have a brotherhood,
That's right.
period. But I'll also say this, as human beings, we can have a brotherhood of mutual love for each other, even if we don't agree on many topics. Many topics. And I'm talking about ultra conservatives. I'm talking about hyper liberals or on that side. At
All of
some point, you have to put the main thing, and that is we are human beings. And, and that matters.
Yeah, I think that's what always matters, because, what's my thing is that when you're expressing your opinion, most of the people are scared to express their opinion because that might be a reason for someone to like get away from you, and it's not even like just, if you talk about politics or, what you believe, no matter what, there's people going to be like, I don't agree with that. And then that's a reason for you to that's for a reason for that. Well, I'm no longer going to talk to you because you think about that,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like what's going on right
Yeah,
now.
that is what's going on right now. So how can we break that? I think we're talking to people. We can tell them, regardless of your opinion, I love you. Regardless of your opinion.
Yeah.
I had the last couple of weeks, several people told me, Josh, I don't really care about Ukraine. We need to get out of there. We need to take care of our own country. And I said, you know what? You have every right to have that opinion.
Yeah.
And I do think we should take care of our country. But that even looks different between what you may think that looks like and I may think that may even look different.
Yeah.
But I will stand by this. And if someone disagrees with me, that's okay.
Yeah, because that's once also the question I'm about to ask you. I hear a lot that, well, we're sending all that money to Ukraine, and
What about
we
the people
shouldn't be
here?
we shouldn't be sending all that money over there, and we should take care of our country. So can you explain your stand about that opinion?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And
Because that's like I guess like the most common opinions
Yeah.
of like the only reasoning why they
Things
don't
aren't
support
great
the war
here.
in Ukraine
Yeah.
because of the financial situation.
right. And I'll just state the obvious. I'm in a minority to take the position that I'm taking. And of course, my position has been colored, in other words, influenced by my time in Ukraine, loving those people. So it is influenced by that. But I will say this. I was an American for 45 years before I went to Ukraine. And so, I mean, anybody that knows me wouldn't question my love for my own country. My son's a soldier. My second son's about to be a soldier. My uncle was in the Marine Corps. I mean, I can go on and on about my heritage as far as serving. But here's the point. Let me answer your question. The truth of the matter is, I have questioned since the war began how we're helping Ukraine. In other words, from the very beginning, when we pulled our own soldiers out of the U.S. Embassy there in Kiev, I've questioned, well, if you're going to give the Ukrainians this, it needs to be faster. If you're going to give the Ukrainians this, don't tell them not to do something with it. If you're going to give the Ukrainians this, let's hurry up this process and get them out of Ukraine. But the only reason I'm sharing this is I'm setting the stage to answer your question. Most people don't agree, or most people agree that the Americans should have helped, but most people think that the Americans shouldn't have helped the way they helped. In other words, if you're going to give them X billion amount of money, and by the way, a lot of that money was in the form of military weaponry,
Equipment,
and
yeah.
equipment. It's not like they were,
Like,
Just giving them
hard
cash.
cash.
somebody in
Yeah.
Kiev is not getting gold
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So, but here's the point. Here's their point. Their point is we need to take care of the United States issues first, and then help other people. Well, my comment to that is we're the United States of America. We can do more than one thing at once.
Exactly.
In other words, do take care of the needs that we have here. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody that has a problem, you just give them a handout. I was the director of a homeless shelter. Even if it's a veteran or a person that doesn't have work, oftentimes the best, most loving thing to do is not just to cut them a check.
Give them
It's
the
to help
tools.
them get work, which gives them dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And it does take some money. So I agree with the American that says we have not allocated our resources correctly during the war. I mean, I appreciated President Biden coming over to Kiev. I was there when he was there. I was thankful my president came. But he would also say something, and then 3 months later, it would not even have happened yet. This is a war. 3 months is forever. So whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to say, do it in American fashion, which means get after it.
Right there and then.
Right. And then here's the second thing I'd say. And most people may agree or disagree, and it is okay if you disagree with me. But there was a time in American history when we made our decisions not based on what was in our self-interest. We made our decisions based on what our identity is. And what is our identity? We are the leader of the free world. Or at least we've said that for years. In other words, democracy, freedom, independence, liberty. We are going to be we're literally going to carry the torch. That's why we have Lady Liberty on our shore, is because we want to take leadership to help people be free. So my comment to the idea that we shouldn't be there at all is the United States of America is not a golden suburb with fences around it so we could just have our own little rich place,
Little bubble.
little bubble of wealth. We are the United States of America. We want for people to be free. Ronald Reagan in the 80s that shows you how old I am. And Ronald Reagan in the 80s would say, isolationism is not what America does. We look and we see, and if someone asks us for our help to liberate and to defend them, we do that. And I know it's been all common. It's very trendy now to say, well, America can't be the police of the world. America doesn't have to be the police of the world. And I'd also like to say this, and I want to make this very clear. Ukraine, in that situation, is not the same as the Middle East. There is a lot of things going on in the Middle East. And that's not what this show's about. But those two things are not analogous. In other words, Ukraine was sitting there, and Russia came just simply attack them. And anybody that believes in freedom and independence knows that that's wrong. So that comes in our consciousness as well, especially soldiers that were in the sand pits. They're like, well, wait a second, we can't be all over the world. Well, we may not have to be all over the world, but I think in other words, it's a privilege to have helped the Ukrainians.
That's well said, man. That's well said. A lot of people will probably try to switch up your words who don't support you. You know what I mean? But that's good, man. It's glad so they can hear the real and the raw of what's actually going on and digest that. Because you know how when people hear something that is the truth and they know it to be the truth, they don't want to accept it sometimes. So they try to find some kind of way and be like, well, I don't really have to accept whatever he's saying. But in the back of their mind, just like, okay, he's telling me the truth. And some people feel guilty of the fact that they understand the truth, and then they go back to the negative comments or whatever they have said in the past and be like, I probably shouldn't have said that then. But that's good, man. That's why we have people like Josh here to clarify things and set the record straight, man. People do need help, and people are struggling. I can't even find the words right now. They're suffering and struggling around the world, and they need people like him, man, like us, people that serve, and we know the struggle. Because when I was in Afghanistan, I'm from a different country, born and raised in Guyana, so I know about community and not judging people or placing that kind of label on them because of their ethnicity or what kind of background. So coming into the military for the first half of it was kind of tricky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because everybody has their own opinion, and I could respect that. But going into Afghanistan with the soldiers that I went with, some of them were ignorant of the fact that they would watch the old war movies, and then they would breed that hatred, not knowing where it's coming from, for people that they don't know, they haven't met, they haven't talked anything like that. So every time they see somebody that's like Afghani or something like that, that's not of their like surrounding or culture
Right.
and stuff like that, they go straight to like the aggression side of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, they become really abrasive towards innocent people that have
Had
not they
nothing to do
yeah
with
have
it.
nothing to do with anything, and I have to like pull them aside like, yo, this man or this woman, they didn't do anything to you. They cook your food, they do your laundry, they clean your buildings. And if any of them were like hateful, as you want to label them off the rip because they're from Afghanistan, then if they were hateful, you'd probably be dead right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they don't understand that, but me explaining it in that kind of way kind of shine that kind of light. You know what I mean? But you can't change people like overnight and
Right.
stuff like
It
that.
takes time. 3 weeks ago, I was out hiking with a friend of mine
Mhm.
over to Cummins Falls.
Mhm.
An older lady came up and we helped her get across the creek there, and we ended up starting a conversation. And she was from Russia,
Mhm.
and I asked her what part, and she said, well, "Why would you ask me that?" And I said, "Well, I want to know where you were from." And she said, "Well, have you been to Europe?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I have been to Europe, and I fought with Ukraine for quite a while the last couple of years." Her head went down. I said, "Ma'am, you don't have to put your head down. That's not a decision you made."
Yeah.
She said, "I feel all this shame." I said, "Ma'am, I love you." I told her, I said, "Ma'am, I love you." And the truth of the matter is, I don't have this. I have animosity and anger, appropriate anger, towards the ideology of Vladimir Putin. It's wrong. But the average Russian person, I don't have this. I don't want them ill for them, other than I would like for their country to stop doing this.
Yeah.
I think, but it goes to your point
Yeah.
that, to me, the color of our hearts is the most important, and the color of our hearts needs to be red. It needs to be the color of love. I know that sounds weak, pansy, like I just walked out of Woodstock, but I assure you, love is the strongest element in the world. In other words, someone comes in here and they're going to try to hurt you guys or me. Love would know if someone's going to hurt my granddaughter. It would not be in a good position for that person to be in. Even though I may be limited in my abilities, love will cause you to, I'm going to do what's right by my granddaughter. And I used to tell our men after several missions. I remember Odin one time. We were fixing to go out on mission, and we were fixing all of us go, and Odin said, "Matt, come over here." And so I ran up to the front. "Sir, yes, sir." He said, "You got 3 minutes." That means I had 3 minutes to say something before we're fixing to go, and we're all rucked up, and you got everything on you, and you're heavy and all that. And I said, "Hey," I said, "mission first. Keep breathing. Pray in the cracks." And I said, "Remember, the Lord is our helper." But then I ended my little time. I shared a few other things, but it's only 3 minutes. But I ended my time by saying this: remember, we fight out of the red, not out of the black. We're fighting for the people behind us, not against the people that are in front of us. And then I said, "Don't get shot," because it's very painful. And we laughed, and I jumped.
That's
But,
good.
but the
man.
point is, we fight out of
love.
the red. And that way your heart doesn't get corrosive. I remember one time one of my TLs, Dutch is his call sign. He hollered out one time in one of our meetings. No, somebody else hollered out in the meetings and said, I'm sick of this. We're not going to give quarter anymore. That's it. We're just going to get after it. They throw their arms down. I don't care. I stood up in the back and stood up and said, "No, we're not." And Dutch said, "We're not going to become the bastards they are. We're going to fight out of love, and we're not going to do that. We got to live with ourselves after this war."
Exactly.
So that's where it gets real straight up when it comes to war situation
Yeah.
and doing what's right.
Because sometimes you gotta pull up your buddy. You know what I mean? When they start to lose that hope and the reason why you're doing this in the first place, and just turn to like savagery or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
You just gotta remind them.
So many of those situations happened in our unit. We had to hit guys on the head because it was a fight or flight mode. Some of us got shell shocked. I just talked to one of my soldiers recently that was in a trench. He was shell shocked for 15, 20 minutes until another soldier jumped on him and hugged him and got him to come,
Come back to.
stress, overload, PTS. I mean, it's legit.
I know, man. That's fight or flight moment kicks in, bro. You don't know what you're doing till people like yell at you. Because I had that moment. In Afghanistan, we were in this place called Farah during our what was our last mission before we had to come back home. And in the middle of the afternoon, I was going back to like one of the buildings that they had ransacked and everything like that. Just go chill out for a little bit, take a nap, take a break, because we were doing like shifts. I'm walking back to the room, my flip flops on and everything like that. And then all of a sudden I hear, I'm like, oh shit! So I ran and I dove inside of like a bunker that was on the side of our like mortar pit. I dove in there for a second. I was hugging the ground, just like in shock for a little bit. Everything calmed down. Everybody was screaming out, "Hey, everybody good?" We're like, "Yeah, we're good," because it didn't go off. Right, the round just landed, so all you heard was like metal just landing on the rocks. Wow. Outside of like my mortar pit is like right here, right beyond this wall, the little Hesco walls that we build. It landed like right out there. So I ran back into the pit, got my kit on and everything, put my helmet on, and we're all in the pit. We're getting ready. I got the round in my hand, getting ready to fire back, and then next thing you hear, again, I was like, oh shit! Everybody was like, get down! They all got down. I'm still standing there. I got the round in my hand, and my body just took over, and I dove out of like the pit. I dove out of the pit, and I'm just curled up on the ground, my eyes closed, like, oh my god, I don't know what's about to happen now. And they were like, "Hey, Riley, what are you doing?" I was like, "What? Where am I?" And then I got up. I was outside the pit, like a couple meters away. Like, this is the pit. I dove out, and I was over here. I was like, "Hang the round." So I just ran back inside of it and just dropped it over that.
And that is what warfare often has. They never show those in the movie.
Nope.
That "where am I at" feeling.
Mm-hmm.
This is, man. I didn't think I'd be sharing this with anybody, but one of our men lost it at a very bad time. What I meant by he lost his mental faculties. There was a tank 100 yards away, and they were firing into a building, and all kinds of stuff happened. And we hit him on the helmet and everything. Several people were killed as a result of that situation. That individual called me the next week. I was over in Kharkiv. Anyway, I made comms. That guy called me. He was fixing to get out because he had so much weight, because he feels like he had lost it at the wrong time. And I said, listen, mistakes were made from a military standpoint. A part of your body took over. You do need to get some help. We all need to get help. And I'll be the first to tell you, I told a bunch of people I need to get help, and I still didn't want to get help. And I went down to a place called Mighty Oaks down in Texas, and that was because June and you and other people just kept saying, hey, you kept affirming, yes, I kept saying I need to get help. Okay, go ahead and do it. But the only reason I mention all that is this. I encourage that man to not let that be the last thing he did in the war. In other words, continue to participate in some role and get the help you need. And he ended up joining another unit, and I've lost comms with him. And that's one of the things about the situation in Ukraine that's tough. You try to maintain comms with as many people as you can, but it's impossible. I mean, if some guy's cell phone gets blown away or something, it's hard to reconnect.
You're left wondering, man. That's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah. Well,